Hey everybody, welcome back to Ready Steady Play. I'm Mike Dennis.
And I'm Ben Hirsh.
And we're here to talk about our final thoughts on Dark Souls, the board game.
Yes, we are.
If you've been keeping up with our channel, you will have noticed that we just finally got to the end of the game. I think this has probably been the longest playthrough we've ever shot.
Yeah, we were up.
Certainly you and I
Yeah.
have ever shot. I'm trying to think if Galaxy Trucker was longer. It might have been, but only because of technical issues, not because of gameplay.
Oh, okay.
This is the longest game we've ever played.
Yeah, this took. I've never have you not sleep and then go straight to work after filming.
I usually get an hour sometimes.
This was like, nope, get changed.
This is Chris was like, we're gonna run out of memory on these cards. I was like, nope, because if we do, I'll be late for work. We're still shooting. So yeah, this went on a lot longer than expected.
So it's a long game.
It's also the first game where we've actually stopped the cameras and played off camera and then turned them back on.
Yeah.
That's never happened before.
Yeah. So this has been quite a negative start.
I don't know if those are negative things. Those are observations. The way they sort of what they tell us about the experience of Dark Souls is it feels more like a video game, I think, than any other board game I've played.
Yeah, no, it's up there.
It's like its philosophy to the approach to gameplay.
Well, you can blame the theme for that. I mean, they wanted to keep it as true to the video game as they could, and we spoke earlier that sometimes that might have been counterproductive, but it depends what you want. If you want to play Dark Souls, this is great. If you want to play like a good tactical miniatures board game, this is still great, but there's going to be some nuances just to keep it video game-like that might annoy some people. That do. It hasn't. I mean, just checking on BGG, lots of people complain about many things for this game, and most of them are because the designers kept it true to the video game.
That's true. There are deliberate choices that have been made in the game that are going to be a sort of a to taste thing, a matter of opinion, and I don't think they're necessarily bad. It's the challenge curve of repeating the content is not so diminished by improving your character that it becomes boring. Having said that, I think it's really about time. If you make the time for Dark Souls, you'll enjoy it if you enjoy the gameplay. Yeah. But if you're not going to set aside a day to play Dark Souls,
well, we had to shoot two halves of this on separate days because it was so long. Just getting to the mini boss was like 4 hours of gameplay. This is I would put this under a campaign category, like a sort of not legacy, but where you do like one scenario and the next day you do another scenario. It's not
not a Descent campaign.
Yeah, why not?
That kind of thing?
Yeah, except there's only like 2 scenarios where you do mini boss and then main boss.
Well, there is a campaign mode in the game.
Yeah,
which involves more.
Yeah.
Of that kind of thing. So it's almost like playing through sort of 2 episodes of a campaign, really.
Yeah.
And the design of the game is definitely set up to accommodate that. The game gives you, or seems to give you, opportunities to put it away and leave. Or, leave it set up and walk away. If you were going to play it over several evenings or something like that, which, might be more or less feasible, depending on your gaming group.
So for those who don't know, you do a bunch of encounters, a mini boss, a bunch more encounters, and a main boss. Between that mini boss and the second set of encounters, you are essentially doing a full reset on the game. You only keep your character stats, any equipment you found, and any of the shared equipment that's been found. You rebuild the loot deck, you rebuild the map. So like you said, that there is definitely, that is like almost a point to sort of say, okay, call it a night, come back tomorrow or whatever. And it definitely lends itself to that. The timing on the box, 60 to 90 to 120 minutes, that's definitely wrong.
That's just absolutely not true. Maybe if you knew how to play it really, really well and you're playing it solo.
Yeah.
I think it does suffer from the sort of the multiplication factor where every player you add will increase the game time. Maybe that's per player.
So what was your favourite aspect of the game?
I really like the combat.
Yeah.
It's great. The way the miniatures move around, the way the monsters behave, and also the way, I suppose, the dice interact. I like that we're the only ones throwing dice.
Yeah, it's quicker.
It's quicker, and it gives that same element of sort of chance or luck or risk, but without making it too swingy.
Yeah, that's true. So it's never too easy. I mean, the bad guys have a fixed armor and a fixed attack. It's only the players rolling dice to try and meet those values, and that does. I mean, it makes it less. It's random, but it makes it less random than if like the bad guys were rolling dice. It would be slower. I mean, the whole game is combat. It's a combat game.
Yeah, absolutely.
And a lot of
it's a series of it almost seems like a series of small skirmishes.
Yeah.
We played the TMNT board game, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles board game, Shadows of the Past.
Yeah.
And almost each board of this almost felt like a smaller version of that.
Yeah, no, definitely. This is like many TMNT games in one go. But yeah, I mean, people say the combat's really simple. And it is. I mean, at its core, you are rolling a dice, comparing numbers, doing damage. You know, there's nothing really special there. But it's all about that movement. That the node base, I mean, maybe the fact they're nodes doesn't mean much, but just the way the AI is programmed and you can kind of work it out like a puzzle every time
we
together.
Should talk about the nodes because I thought I would hate them.
Okay.
I saw them and I was like... They're abstract. They're weird. I don't know where people are standing. I'm gonna hate it. And arbitrarily, you can fit 3 people on, and then someone moves in. Someone gets pushed out. What kind of mechanic is pushing? That's weird. And then we played it, and it worked really well.
Yeah.
And it really fit the theme. And the monsters push people around anyway. They push. They can push each other around.
I don't think they do. Only
Well, bosses can.
Bosses can.
Well, only the boss we fought.
Yeah. Only the 2 boss fight would have one push another out of a node, but yeah, not in the other case.
But what if a monster tried to enter a node with 3 other monsters?
Then it would push out one of the other monsters.
So they can push each other ish.
Yeah, if the node is full.
But when you've got monsters like the Silver Knights and the hulking hollow warrior, large hollow warriors.
Yeah, one of them.
the big skelly men.
Yeah.
And they push you anyway. It just works really well with the nodes and the positioning, and it does create this really interesting puzzle of where's he going to go, what's he going to do,
and where can I be that's safe for the next 3 turns. Well, because the monsters activate after each time someone activates, all the monsters activate. So there's that kind of forward thinking just for your safety. I mean, we're all looking out for each other, which is quite important. It's kind of like a cooperative puzzle, but you really want to make sure that no one's overlooked that. If you end up in that node and after 2 more turns you're going to get attacked and you have no health left, you've got to be aware of that and sort of make it known so everyone's working together to try and keep everyone alive. That's quite fun.
That's great fun, and you've got to work together. I mean, I don't know how well the game would play with 1 player.
I heard people playing the assassin role, just dodging their way to victory makes the game quite easy in a solo game.
I feel like that would be quite dull.
Yeah.
I mean, playing the assassin role was great. I really enjoyed it. I never felt like... I mean, I feel like my damage output was good, but not stellar. And if I was playing that solo through the whole game on my own, I would probably get bored. Because I would be unable to kill things quick enough. And I'd just be waiting to see if there was a big swing where maybe I failed to dodge twice and died.
Yeah, that's true.
I
wouldn't play this 1 player.
I wouldn't play. If I played it 1 player, I would have several heroes to control.
Yeah, that makes more sense.
Because what I really liked about the game was how all of our characters felt different. It felt like they were all doing different, interesting things. The way you were super vulnerable, but also really valuable. And it's like you couldn't really take a lot of hits.
So I was the healer essentially for the whole game.
But you could deal some damage. So
I could do I had that sword that just did magic damage, and there was a while where I could just guarantee some kills, and then heal everyone. I really enjoyed playing. I don't play healer ever, and it's not really. It's cool that it wasn't like you're the healer now. It was just sort of, oh, I got this heal spell and I can use it, and I've got this talisman that gives people stamina. I just hold on to them.
It developed quite organically.
Yeah, it was quite cool. I liked it, and it meant I could still, if needed, get that sword out.
And considering the pros and cons of our characters, that gelled really well. I thought I just really liked the way that kind of all seemed to fit together.
Yeah, definitely.
That made it more interesting. I didn't feel like I had much control over the way my character developed. I felt like there was basically sort of one choice at some point in the middle of our playthrough. Actually, it was, I think, after we cleared the second board. So after the mini boss, before we went into the first fight with the final boss, or somewhere around that point, there was a piece of armor that came up which just had one dodge but had slightly more armor that I could use. And I felt like that was the point where I get to choose between, do I go for like more consistent armor or do I keep just going for this uber dodge?
Yeah.
And that was like, I felt like that was kind of really the only choice I really had to make. That and what do I poison, the sword or the bow?
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, and the weapon upgrades were quite hard choices as well, because they're like permanent. You know,
but
it
didn't feel like that choice was going to change my role significantly.
Yeah. Oh, true. Well, I guess it's hard. You're right. I mean, you pick a character, you have the stat lines, which are kind of geared towards the stuff you can use in the deck. Like the assassin has a lot of like good early game intelligence, so usually seems like the assassin can pick up spells earlier on than most other roles. And yeah, there's not much of a change playing it, but at the end of the day, it's all based on what equipment you find. And as this stands in the base game, entirely random. Like what you find, like can completely it can almost decide whether you win or lose. I think, like if you go through the deck and find nothing, and you're only playing with like two people or just one player, and you just don't find anything for your character throughout the whole game. I mean, we found like 5 things we couldn't use because they were like for like mage only kind of seemingly builds. And luckily that was just 5 cards. So okay, 5 souls, not a big deal. But if there were only 2 of us and we drew all your assassin stuff and no one was playing the assassin, it might not have been as...
But you wouldn't draw assassin specific cards because you do shuffle in the class specific cards to the loot deck. But you're thinking of items that are more geared towards the assassin.
I think I might be wrong, but I feel like one of the things you were using, maybe the sword or the shroud armor, wasn't actually assassin focused.
I don't think I had any assassin specific items until I got the sword that I had right at the end, the one that allowed you to move after attacking. I think that was the only. Maybe the bow was.
Oh, the bow was, yeah.
Yeah, so the bow and that sword, and I think that was it.
Yeah.
So you can kind of do dodgy stuff without. God, that's a British term for sketchy. So you can kind of do dodging type combat role with other characters, or you could certainly try that. Again, it depends on their stat lines and stuff like that. And that was one thing that was concerning to me, was I was thinking, if we keep siphoning through this loot deck and I get to know it really, really well, in future games, am I going to come into this thinking, if we get this item, we can go this way. If we get this item, can we go this way? So we'll see what comes up and how we're going to develop our roles. Or am I going to be like, well, if we're going to do well, we need this, we need this, we need this. And if we don't get them, we might as well not bother.
So you grind until you get it.
Yeah. So I was worried that it might be the latter. And I haven't played enough yet to know which of those two it's going to be.
Yeah.
If it's either of those two. And that brings me back around because we did play half a game with just you and me as the Herald and the Assassin, and we didn't get like any items for you, I think. And actually, even in our playthrough, Chris was using his starter sword for the longest time, and it was okay. So I do think it is doable. I mean, when Ben and I played, just the two of us, as a sort of a practice learn to play, we got to the mini boss, which was the Boreal Dragon Rider.
Yeah.
and it took us 2
No.
hours.
I forgot the name.
It's Boreal Dragon Knight.
Something like that. Can't remember.
But it took us 2 hours to defeat him, and
By doing 1 poison damage every round, it took ages.
we were under-equipped, but we did kill him, so it is possible, even if you don't have the right loot.
It takes a while.
It just takes longer. So yeah, that comes back around to it depends how much time you're willing to commit.
Well, there is a lot online. I mean, I haven't ever picked up a game and then have the Board Game Geek forums just be like, loads of house rules to make it less this or more that or less this. So there are, I mean, I don't think that makes a good game. I think that's probably a bad sign in a game.
Yeah.
But luckily, I enjoy it as it is. I mean, it's fine. I will happily play this vanilla as it plays for a while, you know. But it's also nice to know there are people out there who are working on house rules, like stacked loot decks, so that you don't draw, like drawing something that's awesome and then you can't use it unless you spend like 20 souls, which isn't just like 1 encounter's worth, it was like 4. So I mean, we got to that point by the end of the game where we're like, well, we need this, we need to play 4 encounters so Chris can get that one thing, and it, you know.
But it also got to the point where it sort of made sense to do that. We're like, well, now we've used this reroll and that Estus flask, so we might as well do another encounter, get those souls, because then we'll reset it and we'll do 2 more easy encounters, and then we'll have the 14 souls we need to upgrade this stat point to unlock that thing. So that is, I don't know, that is what it is. That's a specific design choice. There are almost all of the homebrew rules seem to be about either making the loot more consistent or making the time less consumed.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, you know, that's a completely viable thing. But I think it's funny. Like, I don't like how homebrew rules typically, because for me it says there's something wrong with the game. I quite like fan expansions, but that's different. Homebrew rules typically says to me there's something that needs to be fixed.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure this is something that needs to be fixed. It's almost like offering alternate game modes, and it says, what do you want for your Dark Souls experience?
Yeah, it's probably more about making it less of a video game board game and more of a kind of practical board game that you can fit within time, which is cool. I mean, if you're a hardcore Dark Souls fan and you just want it as the video game, you play it as it is. If you're more of a board game and less of a Dark Souls fan and you just want a fun board game to play with friends in a night where it's not frustrating like actual Dark Souls is, then yeah, you've got the homebrew rules. So
well, there's something fundamentally different about grinding in the Dark Souls board game to grinding in the Dark Souls or in any video game, which is that in this or in the board game, as you're not controlling the monsters, but you're acting for them, or you're enacting their behaviors, which is mentally taxing. So
it's not mindless. It's
it's
actually
not
quite tiring.
Grinding in video games can be incredibly mindless, especially if you're good at it. Or Dark Souls is quite dynamic and quite kinetic, so it feels less mindless than other games like something like World of Warcraft or a Final Fantasy game
Any
where
auto attack game, yeah.
it becomes super mindless. So on the one hand, this I guess does gel up with sort of the grinding in Dark Souls more. And the thing is, like, you can always make a mistake in this game. Like, it's like I was saying before, right at the start of this, it's never easy mode. There's always room to screw something up, so you can't just coast. But it also means that if you do want to have the authentic Dark Souls experience, but you don't want to have to be hyper focused all the time, then too bad. It becomes almost like a test of stamina.
Yeah, of mental stamina.
Yeah. Which I suppose you could argue is very Dark Souls.
Yeah.
But it might just not be something that you're particularly interested in. And we all know that, time is precious.
Yeah, especially with board games.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, well, I could have played 3 board games by now.
Yeah.
Or half a game of Colonists.
So yeah, I mean, component wise, it's great. I mean,
The minis are great.
the artwork's a bit dark, but I didn't have a problem with it at all. I mean, the tiles look cool.
The tiles are a bit dark.
Yeah, but it's Dark Souls.
Yeah.
So, but it's good. I mean, I can't. The only things I have to say about it which are bad are like, because it just conflicts with the fact that they were made for the Dark Souls fans. So it's hard to say they're bad. They're just different to what a typical board gamer may just enjoy. So
I mean, I'm not a Dark Souls person. I've barely played the video games at all. Chris constantly tells me off about it.
he tells me off for liking Dark Souls 2, which is understandable. But
I mean, I realized I've actually only played about an hour or two of Dark Souls 3, but then I also realized I played quite a lot of Demon Souls, which is actually Dark Souls apparently.
Dark Souls 0.
So I have played some of that, but the point is I'm not like, I mean, when I say this is very Dark Souls, it's because people told me it was. It's not because I know that. And you know what, like, this is an experience I would happily have again.
Yeah.
You know, it's not something, I mean, I do worry about when I'm going to get it down off the shelf, and that's what gives me a reservation, because it's an £80 game. The core set, which is what we've played here on the channel, is £80. I'm fortunate in that I've got the Kickstarter stuff coming, which I think is going to add a lot of interesting replayability, because I think the first thing that's going to get dry is
The bosses.
the heroes, actually.
Oh yeah.
I think the heroes will, the bosses will remain, especially the ones with more moves, like the dancer, to compare the two bosses, main bosses. The dancer has 10 cards, but every fight he has 5. The problem with Ornstein and Smuff is that they use all their cards in the fight, so once you've done that, you kind of know it.
Yeah.
I mean, the order will change, but the moves will remain the same,
Yeah.
which is unfortunate, I think, because if they had more moves and you didn't know which ones were going to come up, it would give the fight more replayability.
Yeah, true.
So I think actually it's especially, and again, this comes back to that point I was making earlier about whether or not when I'm playing the game, I'm going to be like, well, I can develop this hero in a number of ways depending on what loot comes out the deck, or I know the optimal build for this hero, so I'm just going to wait till I get that loot, and if I don't get it, I'm going to be sad.
Well,
so if there are optimal builds for the heroes, and there's only 4, and if there are optimal heroes or optimal configurations, that's going to be disappointing.
Well, yeah.
But then again, it's such a time sink. I don't know if I'm going to get it on the table often enough to discover that, you know? Like, I don't know if that's a problem I'm ever going to have, unless I've got like a hardcore group of dungeon crawling players to play with who are like, let's just put us out a week for Dark Souls and solve this game.
Yeah. I mean, I knew I loved it, because even after playing all night and then driving home in the car at 7:30 a.m, I was just thinking, wow, that was really fun. I can't wait to play again. Even though it was still really enjoyable, and I think that's cool. Like, even though it was,
I immediately wanted to play again.
Yeah, me too.
I was like, I want to try again. I want to try another boss. I can't wait for the Kickstarter stuff to come.
Yeah, I'm really excited for the Kickstarter stuff. We have to wait till like October?
October, yeah, for that. Also, I instantly regretted not getting the mushroom add-on.
Oh, Darkroot Basin.
Yeah, Darkroot Basin. Partly because it comes with the mushroom models, but mainly because it comes with a lot more equipment. And I thought that's something I'd really like to see, because maybe that will solve this concern I have about directions for characters. Yeah, optimal builds and directions for characters.
I played it once before we played it, and that was, I mean, there I played the Herald, but I was running around with a halberd and a talisman and not healing at all, and it was working pretty well with just 2 of us.
Well, that's reaffirming.
Yeah. So I mean, but though we killed the gargoyle really easily, and my friend was the knight, so we didn't bother with healing or anything. So it's doable. I mean, I don't think you need a herald and you need him to heal necessarily, because if you think about it, stamina not spent healing is spent killing, and killing in a way is really defensive, because the less bad guys, the less damage you take. So it's just a different way of healing, Yeah.
So because I'm just wondering about if I were to play the assassin again, and I were to try and go in a completely different direction, what directions would be available to me, and would they be as good?
I think spellcaster.
Spellcaster,
Yeah,
assassin.
I think that's kind of.
I mean, in my understanding of fantasy adventure games, that sounds crazy town. It sounds like a bard, not an assassin. But I don't know Dark Souls that well.
Yeah, well, I mean.
Well,
They all
Chris
kind of
was
use
like,
it.
I need a spell, and I was like, but you're a knight.
No, I mean in Dark Souls everyone kind of uses magic.
I'm clearly just like fantasy prejudice.
They're just reading scrolls and they don't really need to learn magic. They just kind of, aha, I've equipped this magic thing that I can read and cast lightning bolts.
So what you're telling me is Dark Souls breaks down fantasy stereotypes.
Yeah, I mean it's its own world and its own theme.
But the stretch goals comes with a whole bunch of new heroes, which I think are going to be available at retail.
Not sure if it's available at retail, but there's like more than the heroes you get in the base game.
There's like 6 more, I think. But one of them is just the hero with nothing.
Yeah. That's the hard mode.
The destitute hero.
Yeah.
I mean, so that's, I don't know if that's really an option.
But then they've got all the raiders, where I don't know how that's gonna work. The allies, all the more bosses, like more minis, more. There's gonna be so much. I feel like there's more in the stretch goals than in the base game. I'm thinking we're gonna get a box like that big, which is like, here is the expansion to that.
That's true. I really hope it's available for retail because, well, one of the things I noticed. So this was one of the things I noticed.
Basin will be available for retail.
That will definitely be available for
And
retail.
so
So that's an add-on
and
expense.
so will the mega bosses.
Yes, which is like if you didn't get enough out of the middle bit, now you can play the next bit.
Yeah, so that adds a third set of encounters and a third, even harder boss at the end. If you're feeling like 12 hours of gameplay wasn't enough, or if you did it quickly. I mean, we just took a long time because we were filming, so.
Yeah, I mean, sure. I think I feel like we raced through part 1, and then part 2 we put in all the time that we saved in part 1.
Yeah.
It's like, this is how long it takes. You don't get to save time. You just have to make it up later. You know. But no, all I was going to say is that one of the stretch goal heroes is a sorcerer. So that's a magic dude. Can he use a sword?
Probably, yeah.
Can he use heavy armor?
Probably. The thing is,
I don't understand
the only
characters.
The only thing you can't do is if your stat requirement is beyond what your maximum tier 3 stat line is, which
but is this
a few things for me that.
So I guess this is what I'm curious about. The ability to equip items in the board game is entirely tied into your stats and your tiers, right? In the video game, is equipment the same, or is it class specific as well?
You have a starting set.
Because even in the board game, like you had the knight's armor in the board game.
Well, the way it works in the video game is you have your starting stats and your starting equipment, but you can choose which stats you want to level up. Entirely up to you.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want to just level, and I don't think it's skewed towards particular stats for particular starting classes. It's literally just a starting class, and then you can just go wherever you want with it. It just gives you that. I mean, if you pick a low strength build and you want to turn it into a strength build, it's just going to take long because it'll cost more souls to do that, and it'll just take more grinding. But yeah. So yeah, I liked it.
The Mega Boss character, is he on 3 boards? Like a really long room? Because it seems like every time you go on the stage, you just add a board.
I have no idea. I don't think so. Oh no, maybe. It does come with a Mega Boss tile, I think.
It's just a really big one.
Yeah.
A million nodes. Well, I think that more or less covers our thoughts on Dark Souls. Sorry we didn't go into too much detail on the miniatures. I think there's probably people more qualified than us to talk about those.
And there's lots of coverage already, kind of.
I've heard people talk about the soft plastic as being an issue, but
my Harold had his spear floppy at one point.
Floppy spear. He did have a very floppy spear at points, but
we straightened him out.
Yeah, I guess that's the thing about soft plastic. You just straighten it out.
Yeah, it doesn't bug me.
I don't know if paint would help solve that problem. I mean, we'll probably never paint them, so
Nope.
sad tragedy. Maybe Chris will paint his and come and play with us with the painted ones.
Yay.
That'd be nice.
Yay. So yeah, that's everything.
I hope this has helped you to sort of determine whether or not this is a game for you. I think it's going to be a decision that's going to be informed a lot by who you play with and your group and their determination or their interest in the game. If I was a younger man and I played a lot of board games with my friends from school still, I think this would be a killer game. I would love it. Like to be like, what are we going to do on the weekend, guys? Let's play Dark Souls.
Yeah.
You know?
The thing that really got this for me is that whenever I played the video game of Dark Souls, I've always been like, I'm kind of lonely. Oh, okay, people are helping me, but I don't really know them. You couldn't like have a friend come over and be like, oh, let's play Dark Souls. But now you can kind of share Dark Souls with other people in the same room. Like I always wanted Dark Souls to be local co-op as a video game, but this did it. If only this, like you say, if I had this at uni, it would have been great.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. Like for such an expensive game, as someone with a job and a YouTube channel, when am I ever going to get my copy to the table? I don't know, but I hope so. I hope I can, and that's a good sign.
Yeah, true.
So thanks so much for watching our series and coming on our Dark Souls adventure with us.
Yeah.
We hope that you've enjoyed it, and we hope that our condition during the grind wasn't too frightening.
Oh yeah, we were pretty out of it.
We were pretty exhausted.
If you haven't actually watched the series yet, also this will make more sense if you do watch at least some of the episodes.
Yeah, I think you could sort of pick out.
Just don't watch the last few where we're like falling asleep, maybe.
Well, the last 2 might be quite good with the boss in.
But before that, we were just like,
yeah, maybe don't watch that one without the context of the rest of the series.
Yeah.
But I think that's. I mean, I don't want to sum up a thoughts video being like, and I think you should just watch the other videos and make up your own mind. But I think it really is a very specific thing, and if what we've said in this video hasn't sold you on it and you're still unsure, then you should definitely go and have a look at some of those gameplay videos, because I think that this lives and dies by whether or not you enjoy the combat. And if you think that looks interesting, I think it's great. I really like it a lot. I mean, that's what makes this game for me. So
yeah, it is the game. Cool. So thanks for watching.
And thanks for coming on this adventure. And we'll see you tomorrow for another adventure. Bye, everyone.
See ya.